Hello everyone, welcome to this Pokeball product animation video. As you can see on the thumbnail, you'll be using two really popular software to create this animation. First one is Fusion 360 for the CAD and 3D modeling, and then Blender for the rendering and animation. While it is possible for you to work solely on Blender and create this animation, I believe the combination of both these softwares that are freely available will really allow you to bring your ideas to life with the precision of CAD and with the photorealistic render options that Blender provides. I've added the download links for both this software, and we'll also be using an extra add-on which is super simple to download and install. You'll be guided through on the website. So all the software are freely available, but if you're a student, I'd recommend that you use the education license that Autodesk offers. You have a plethora of software, but yeah, Fusion is one of them. But if you're not a student, you can always download Fusion 360 for personal use. While the import and export file types are limited, it should cover the major types that we are going to use along all the tutorials. And don't worry if you're not a native CAD user, the tutorial is still quite simple to follow through. And if you have all the installations ready, we can get into the video without any further ado. Okay, so let's start with the Pokeball design. I'm on a empty Fusion 360 file. This is quite a simple design. We'll just need one sketch where I'll make the outline and all the cutouts for the buttons. And we'll use revolve and extrude to get our desired shape. So let's start with creating a sketch in the front view. Let me select that. Okay. And we need a couple of circles to form the Pokeball outline. Let's make it about 10. And another one, 9. No, let's make it 9.5. Seems about right. Also, I'll just make a simple rectangle to divide the Pokeball shells like the red and the white one. So that would do. But we don't need the lines inside, so we can just get rid of them. And let's start out with the cutout. So this will be the cutout in the shells that we see that houses the buttons. So then let's make it about 3 centimeters. And the button, let's make it about 2.4. Also, there's another button. So this will be the light up button that goes red and green. Also, we need another button that is used to push to enlarge the Pokeball. Let's make this about 1.5. That seems about right. Also, we need, before we finish the sketch, we need an axis to revolve our paths along. So let's just create a line. This will act as a axis for us to rotate these parts around. And yeah, that's it. We're good. Let's finish the sketch and we're done with the sketch. Step 2, we'll start modeling using revolve first. So let's do the black or the inside part of the Pokeball. So we're not making an open and closed Pokeball because based on our requirements, we're only animating a closed Pokeball. So we don't really need to model everything like make a hollow ball and do all that stuff. So let's just keep it simple for this project. I've selected the part, I've selected the axis, and we have a new body. You can see the body is already formed. And we want to use the same sketch that we created for the top and the bottom and the cutout. So let me make this sketch visible. And we can start off with creating the shells. I'm going to do the same process again, but this time we're going to select these parts. We'll have the same axis and make it revolve. And please make note that you'll have to change the operation from join to new body. So this creates 3 new bodies. If not, it will just join to the first body and we'll just have one body. And that's not what we want to do because when we have separate bodies, it becomes really easy for us to apply material, just drag and drop rather than opening up in edit mode, and you'll get to see that later. Okay, now we can see that we have all 3 bodies, the black part, the top and the bottom. We're good. Now let's just start with the cutout. I'll be using extrude. Let me hide the bodies first and then we'll select our parts that we want to extrude. And we'll have to bring back the bodies because I want the extrude to start not from the profile that we are drawing but from the body of the black object. So let's just select that here, object, the black part, and you can see now that the extrude is going to start from the surface of the object that we have selected, in this case the inside black part of the Pokeball, and let's just pull it out to get our desired cutout. Perfect. Repeat the same process, but this time we'll not cut, but we'll extrude these buttons. You can hide the Pokeball or you cannot. Just depends if it's easy for you to select. Sometimes when the objects are in between, it's a little harder for you to do that. But if you can, just deal with it. However you think, right? Okay. Okay, you do the same thing and let's extrude this about 0.15. That seems fine. And again, I don't want this to be joined to the black part. I want this to be a separate body. So new body, okay. And we'll have to do that again for the final button. So let me extrude once again. Select the buttons inside. And this time the object will be the one that we just created. And extrude. Yeah, that seems fine. I want this to be a separate body as well. Okay. So now we have all 5 bodies. We pretty much have our Pokeball. Let me write a sketch. Yes. Also, if you don't want it to feel exactly machine, you want it to make it feel a little real, you can use the fillet function to, curve the edges rather than having the sharp edges that we have here. And to hit shift and yeah, I don't think you need to hit shift. Yeah, you can just select, pull it in. Well, that seems about right. Okay. I want to do the same with just the button. I want it to have a fillet, make it pop out a little bit. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, now we are almost done. Or we are pretty much done with the design, and you can save the file as one. Fine. So because we'll be visualizing this project on Blender, you will be needing to export this as object files or wavefront object files. You can find export option in the file. And once you click that, you have several types of formats that you can export your design in. So we generally use step files when you want all the geometrical information. Whoever you're sending these files to, if you want them to have proper control so that they can modify the file further, we generally use step. And you use STL files. I'm pretty sure you guys know already for 3D printing. But when it comes to visualization, Blender can only use OBJ files from out of the formats that we have here. So we'll be selecting OBJ, which is short form for object file format. But before we do that, I'll have to make sure that we want all these parts to be sent out as separate files so that it becomes easier for us to apply material and just going to make our life way easier when we are applying material on Blender. So let me hide all the bodies that I don't want to export as of now. I'll use V to hide the bodies, and then we just export each and every part separately. So we have 5 parts. Let me get that done first. Export. I already created the files that we wanted. OBJ. And I'm going to name this just to have a clear naming convention. TB Axer inside export. Now we do the same with the top and all the remaining parts. Okay, now we're done with the designing part. Let me fire up Blender and I'll see you over there. Alright then, I have Blender opened up and we have all the files that we just created. So let's start by importing the files into Blender. I don't really need this cube. I'm going to delete that. Let's start by importing our parts. So this is the format that we're looking for. Wavefront OBJ, and let's open the location. And I only need the files with .obj extension. I don't really need the other ones. So just select the ones with that .obj extension and import them. And just like that, we have our Fusion 360 model imported into Blender. The size is quite huge, so I'm going to scale it down, let's say about 1/10. I'll do that by typing 0.1 after S. And I also want to rotate this along x-axis in -90 degrees. Okay. All right. And before we start importing the material and the forest ground and all the assets, I want to change the engine from EV to cycles, and let me show you the difference. Like, we're going to open the rendered view, and this is how normally it looks like with EV engine, but when we change it to cycles, we have a bit more of realistic look with the lighting and the shadows. And make sure you change your device from CPU to GPU to make it a little bit faster if you have a good GPU. All right, let's start by importing the forest ground. You can find your add-ons on the side option. I have two add-ons currently, the Polygon one from Blender Guru and Blender Kit. So we'll be looking for a model, and I'm going to search for a forest ground, forest floor, something like that. While most of the locked assets are only available with a subscription, the library is quite huge. You're bound to find something you can work with, something like that. Okay, the scale, we need to change the scale a bit. So let's just scale it up. I'm going to hit S, which is about 10 times. Fine. Also, just to make our lives easier, get rid of this. And you can see when we move the light on the Z axis of it, G, Z, you have it there. Also, I want to increase the power, so 6000. Yeah, that seems about fine. And now I'm going to adjust the location of the floor object so that we have the Pokeball in our desired position. I'm going to do that with G and let's say Z. So that our Pokeball is on top, that's somewhere there. And now I'm going to hit G and Shift Z. So yeah, when you hit G and Z, you're telling the program that you want to move in Z axis. And when you hit G and shift some Z, X or Y, you're saying the program that you want to move it in both the axes other than the axis that you've selected. So shift Z means I get to move this object in both X and Y directions. So yeah, we'll place it somewhere here. And then again, I want to move it so that it touches the ground. G and Z this time. Something like that. Smooth. C. Two. C. Somewhere here. That seems fine. Yeah, somewhere here. That works. Okay. Now let's start applying materials to our Pokeball. You can see that because we designed this on Fusion 360, even though we didn't import the .mtl files, there's a material that has been applied, which is steel satin. This is a material that you want to see when we were designing this on Fusion 360. We don't really need this material. So I'm just going to delete all the materials on all the paths. All right, and let's start importing materials from Blender Kit. So I'm going to go on to this material options and search for the kind of material that we're looking for. So in this case, for the top, we are looking for a material that is red, a metallic material that is worn out. So I'm going to hit the same thing. Metal, worn, red. Because quite some options, the material library on Blender Kit is quite huge. I think I'll go with this one. For the button, I'll just change the color from red to white. So you can either, when the part that you want the material to be applied is selected, you can just you can just click on the material. But if another part is selected, like the bottom part is selected, and let's look for just metal worn out without any color specifications, and I want to apply this for the push button. You can either select the button and just hit, or you can just drag the material and make sure that the line is pointing on to the part that you want the material to be applied. And just by that, you have the material applied. When it comes to the black and the light up part, because I want to animate the emission, we are going to apply our own material. And for the black part, I don't think you need a material with such a detail, just to make it a little easier on your CPU. So I'll be applying our own material. You can, if you can't see this, you'll have to click on material option and then new. And here you can adjust the color, the metallic surface, and also the roughness of the surface, where the roughness basically corresponds to the reflectiveness of the material. The more rough the material is, the less reflective it is, and the smoother or the less rough it is, the more reflective it is. So let's start by changing the color to super dark, almost, yeah, black. I want this to be metallic or not, so it doesn't really matter. Whatever you feel fine. I'm going to change this to something like 4. Let's create a metallic looking material for the light window pattern. We'll do the same thing, but I'm going to keep the color almost a tint of blue. If you want the exact color, you can find, you can type in the hex code here. That is C4, CB, and E7. And then I'm going to turn the metallic to 1 all the way. It seems fine, and I will reduce the roughness to something like 0.25. Okay, seems fine. Now that we're almost done, yeah, we're pretty much done with material and the environment. Let's fine tune the camera and the lighting. Before we do that, make sure that you just save your blend file at every step, because something so GPU intense, at least for my PC or based on whatever PC you're using, it's always a good practice that you save your work. So I'm going to main it as Pokeball. Let's see. All right. And let's start with the camera. You can see the camera is available here, but if you can't find it, you can just find it here. And to open camera view, we hit 0 on numpad, and I'll start moving the camera with shift plus comma or the asterisk that is available above or below the escape button. So the controls are pretty simple. We can move the orientation with the mouse, use A, S, T, and W to change the direction, and you can use Q and E to change the elevation. So I'm going to move the camera and find the right angle that you want to animate your Pokeball in. Something like this. Yeah, I'm going to make it a little towards the down. Okay. That seems about right. And if your PC is already whizzing or it's really on fire, just to make it a little easier, you can limit the region that is being rendered by clicking on Control P and selecting the camera window. And that limits the render just to the camera window. It's a little easier on your PC and also gives you a clearer idea of what the final result would be looking like. Alright, then we're almost done with applying materials, so let's get animating now. Okay, before we start animating the Pokeball, I'd like to give you a brief introduction of how animation works on Blender if you're new to it. So we basically use the timeline to animate frames based on the position of the object that we're working with. So let's say I want to animate this Pokeball. I'll have to select all the paths. And on frame 1, I'm going to insert a rotation keyframe. And I'm going to move this to about frame 30. And then I'm going to rotate this Pokeball. Then create another keyframe. And notice that the location is on 30. And now I'm going to create the location, another rotation keyframe. And when you can see when I drag through this is pretty much how animation works in Blender. So we are going to animate from position to position on the timeline. So currently I'm thinking about we create a 4-second animation, and it is going to be for 30 frames per second. So we need almost 120 frames. So we are going to start at frame 1 and end at 120. And you can use your mouse scroll button to just zoom in and have a adjust the timeline however you feel comfortable. All right. After that, I'm going to delete both these keyframes. And before we start animating the Pokeball, I think just to make it a little more realistic, I'm going to create a couple of assets like simple plain elements to create the shadow and create the realistic look. So let's first exit from the render view. And this is material preview. I think this should be fine. I'm going to create a new mesh, a plane. I'm going to move this to the top. See about there. And let's edit this to look like something like a branch. You don't have to be super precise. So let's get into edit mode by hitting on tab. I'm going to create a couple of more edges so that I can work with the shape. All right, somewhere here. First, I'm going to hit A to select all and then scale it down in x-axis. Also scale it up in y-axis. Okay, that seems fine. Now we are on vertex select mode, and don't really bother to be exactly on the top view or on the side view. You can just be something like this. What this does is it when you move, let me show you. When you use G and move, it creates a kind of bend, and that really works in your favor in this case specifically. But if you want to create an exact plane, you can do that by using the particular axis like Shift G and Shift Z to move it just in X and Y so that it's still an exact plane. Or you can make sure that you're exactly on top view, and that is when you're using the move or the G function, and that still gives you a plane. But in this case, it doesn't really matter because we are only using these elements to create a shadow. So we're going to place this between the light and the ground to create a shadow and create that realistic look of a forest ground with trees around. Okay. So I'm going to edit this using the same, I'm going to select the vertices and move them around to give this that tree kind of look. So let's get that done first. Yeah, something like that. And let me show you how this looks in the final render. Because the position is almost where we want, you can see there's a perfect shadow that is being generated by the shape. We'll also have to exit the edit mode, and there you go. You have a perfect branch creating a shadow. I think we can move the light a little bit more in the z-axis so that we can place the branch exactly where we want it to be. So I'm going to do that with G, Z. Let's increase the power to say about 10,000. And also, you can change the color of the light. You don't want it to be extremely green or red, but you can create like a slight tint of orange to give that kind of evening sun rays kind of look. Something like that. Yeah, that's perfect. Now I'm going to enter camera view, and there you can see it looks way better like that. Okay, and let's adjust the plane. And you can't see it here, but when you select it on the timeline, the plane has been selected. And now we'll move it along y-axis. Then I want to say rotate it along z-axis. I want it to like have a shadow passing through the Pokeball just to give that look. And because you are going to add emission to the button, I think it is going to really pop out. So I'll do that. This. Now let's move this y-axis again. And no, if you like this, you can leave it here. But I want the shadow to be present on the emission part of the button. So let's move this X and something like that. That seems fine. Okay. Uh, let's exit. I think there's a lot of white space creating the noise, like the branch is really tall from a different tree. So I'm going to create another plane that is pretty much like a tree trunk to give that realistic look. I'm going to place one here and another one here so that it gives like it's a lush green forest. So we only see the shadows, but internally it creates that look that the Pokeball is in somewhere on the forest ground. So let's deal with that. I'm going to create a couple of planes. I think we can reuse just a single branch that we create. So let's move this first. Okay, and to scale this along y-axis, Something like that should work. Do you think we need to modify this, or let's just do it? Tab Shift R. I think 2 will do. I want to place them somewhere here. Okay, select this. G. G. I think that's good enough. Let's just paste it on the paste so that the shadow is not on the Pokeball, but we have somewhere where the branch is connecting to. For that, I'll open render view. See, that's exactly what I was talking about. I think we can scale it down a bit. To hit tab, and then scale that down, something like that. Okay. And let's go to camera view. And just you can see that creates a kind of realistic look. That was what I was talking about. All right. Also, there's a lot of open area on this side, so I just want to duplicate this. We can do that with Shift D, or you can just do like create an instance with Alt D. So in this case, you're not duplicating the body, and the number of polygons that are being rendered every time is going to remain same, at least for the part that we are instancing. So, but the another drawback is like whatever changes you make for this, apply for this, but because we are just using this for animations, it shouldn't really matter. Let's adjust the position of that bar. Okay, that's good. It's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted it to look like. All right. So I want to create a couple of leaves to create a little more depth to the animation, a little more realistic feel. And we'll do the same. We'll just create a couple of planes and mold them to look like leaves. It's obvious. Okay, let's start by adding in a plane. Just like we did, I'm going to move this Z direction just so that we can edit it more clearly. All right, hit tab, add a couple of more edges, and we start making a rough leaf shape. You don't really have to be particular about the shape. So with the vertex mode selected, I'm going to hit G. Just move the vertices to form a basic leaf shape. Anything that looks remotely like leaf will still work because we only need this to create that shadow. And most of the leaves will be moving, so it doesn't really matter. Two. All right, there you go. We have a leaf. I'm going to exit the edit mode, scale it down, something like that. Okay, and then move this just so that it's clear. And we're going to need many of these leaves. Like I just want like a brief flowing and a couple of leaves that are flowing around. So I'm going to duplicate this. So in this case, we'll be using Shift T. One, Shift T, again, Shift T, here, Shift T, Shift T. Let's say about 6 of leaf. And I'm going to change the scale. And also just to make it a bit random. And to rotate them around. All right, let's enter the render mode and just check the shadows that are being formed. And there you can see that looks really cool with the shadows. So I want them to move across across our scene, and we'll do that. You can try to select them and do that, but I think we have a basic idea of what are the regions that are being covered. So you can use this white stone as an anchor point. And now I will make sure that the shadows, when we move them, that the shadows pass through this region. Okay. And also, you don't want that these leaves are interacting and getting into the scene. So make sure that you just move them from side to side. In this case, I'm going to select this. Let's enter a keyframe for location and rotation. Okay. Now I'm going to move it to the last frame, and by end of the frame I want this leaf to be passing through a seam and ending up in some area. Let's do that by hitting G or something like that. And I'm going to even rotate it a bit. And we create a new keyframe with this. Let's hit play to see how that looks. Perfect. I'm going to do the same with all the leaves. Just create a new keyframe. Make sure that it's on the right frame. So key, location, rotation, and then to the final frame. Let's change location and then hit K. Make sure that you save the location and rotation. Perfect. Then I'm going to make sure that these move just in the X and Y direction, just to make sure that I don't pull this into the seam. So we'll do the same with this. Enter a keyframe, location and rotation, G, Shift C. This one will be right down or something like here. Then I'm going to rotate it and then the K to enter keyframe. Let's just play and just have an idea of how that will work. I think we place the keyframe on the first location. So we can do that too. Like I'm going to frame 1 now. The leaf is selected. I'm going to move this leaf back. Let's say somewhere here. And now I'm going to rotate this as well. Alright, and now I'm going to enter the keyframe on the first frame, location and rotation. Now you can see that it pretty much works the same. Perfect. You can see the shadows have been formed. Let's repeat this a couple of times so that we can have a bunch of leaves moving, like flowing in the breeze. Let's have a look in the camera view. There you go. That's exactly what I was talking about. I don't want this to look, but because I want to make sure that the camera is zooming in, I'm not going to correct this, but you can just correct this by selecting the leaf, deleting this keyframe and making the position a little bit higher and then making a new keyframe. But I'm not going to do that because I'll probably zoom in the camera. Let me show you that before we start animating the Pokeball, okay? So with the camera selected, it's pretty much the same process. I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit more. I'm going to adjust in this angle. That seems right. And now I'm going to create a new keyframe with the location and the rotation. But in this case, because we're not rotating or changing the scale of the camera, I'm only going to create a keyframe for location. And then on the final frame, I just want this to be zoomed out of the screen. So same thing again, shift the corner and I'm going to zoom in just that much. I'm going to click to confirm the position and then hit K and create a new keyframe for location. So that would create a clean zooming in look. And also you must see that the animation starts out slowly, then it speeds up and then ends up slowly. And that is pretty much a busier curve. But if you want a linear animation, because in case of cameras, it really works, it looks organic when you're doing this for organic objects like leaves and stuff. But in camera, I'd always prefer that it be linear. So you can do that by with your mouse on the timeline, hit T and select linear. And now you can see the motion is pretty much constant speed. Unlike that with the leaves are going to slow down at the end, and that is kind of a realistic look for organic motions. But in case of camera, always choose linear. I mean, it depends on what you prefer. This is something that I prefer. Okay, we are pretty much done with the leaves, and now we can start animating the Pokeball. I'm going to animate the Pokeball to wobble a couple of times, and then when the light, I mean, meanwhile, the lights blinking in red, and then when it stops wobbling, I want it to end with a green emission and then go back to the metallic color. And to do that, let's just capture the position. I want to capture the rotation and the location, and we'll do that with K, capture the location and rotation, and on frame 5. Okay, we haven't selected the Pokeball paths yet, so we are going to add a keyframe for the plane, which is not something that I want to do. I'm going to go on frame 1 again, and then we'll select all the Pokeball paths, so everything that has PB. Or if you want to make your life a little bit easier, you can also create a collection. This is Shift M, create a new collection, and name it Pokeball. Okay. And there you go. You have all the parts in one collection, so it's easier for you to select them. Now I'm going to capture the position with K, location, and rotation. And on frame 5, I want to start the wobble with it has to move back a little bit and then start wobbling. So we'll just rotate it back a bit, and with G, just move it a little bit, and then create a new keyframe for the location and rotation. And by frame, because we're making this on 30 frames, it's easier for me to animate it on 5 frames each. I want it on 25, I want it to be on the extreme end, and on 30, I want it to be back. Maybe something like that. No, on 20, let's make sure that it's on the extreme edge. Yeah, on 20, let's make sure that it's on the extreme edge. So I'm going to hit R, rotate it a bit more, and then also a G, pull it to the front a bit, and hit K to capture the location and rotation. And now you can see this is how it looks. It goes back a little bit and then comes here. And by 30, I want it to be back to this position. I'm just going to hit Control C, and on frame 30, I'm going to hit Control V. So there you go. We have a wobble, and I'm just going to copy these with, I'm going to duplicate this with Shift D. This make sure that the position is on 31. I'm going to zoom that in and select this. Yeah, we are on frame 31, and I'm going to duplicate this again, and this make sure that we're on frame 61, and so that's about 3 vowels, right? 1, 2, 3, and now we want it to turn green. All right, so we're almost done with the wobbling, and this is when I want the emission to start. So on frame 5 to 20, and then 35 to 50, and 65 to 80. I want it to be on red, and then I want it to turn green. All right, with on frame 5, I'm going to select material, and this time, because you only want to add emission to the light up button, I'm going to click on the light up button and go to materials and click on this emission button that you'll find it in the material section. And first we'll select the color to red, and I'm going to get one that seems about right, something like that, 1 point. Okay, 0. I'm going to create a keyframe with 0 emission power at 5, and I want it to peak on say 20, 1.2, and now we'll create a keyframe again. So you can see peak, I want it to get back to 0 on 35 again. So I want to get 0, keyframe, and it's 0. So there you go. That's pretty much what I want to happen. And again on 50, Okay, something went wrong. I think we haven't created the keyframe with 0. So let's hit 0, create the keyframe. Okay, there you go. And again on 50, I want this to be 1.2. Create a keyframe on 65. I want this to be 0. So we'll create a keyframe. And then 1, 2, 3. And let's say ET. Yeah. And the light turns to green and 1.2. Now I'm going to select the color and the emission power, and by 90, or say 95, everything's back to normal. All right. So we're done with animating the Pokeball and it's time to render. But before we render, I'm going to create a new file to store the frames that we are going to create. So I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to name it. So frames. I have to take this out. But yeah, we have a file where we can store our PNGs, like every separate frame. And then I'll use the video editing feature on Blender to merge them together. So currently, let's go to the output, and here you can see where you want to store your output. I'm going to select the location that we just created. Frames, accept, should be fine. And when you get to render, you can see the number of samples is about 4000, and that's not really, that is going to really increase your Blender rendering time. So I'm going to pull that down to about say 600. And that's good enough. And I'm going to change the noise threshold from 0.1 to say 0.5. It seems about right. Now, just before we start the render, I'm going to create just so that we have everything fine. I'm going to create a image render with F12 just to have a look that everything's fine. The material and the lighting is exactly how we want it to look. So this is with the shadows. The emission looks fine. The material looks fine. And sometimes if your camera orientation is down, you can adjust the camera orientation and know everything. So just make sure that you have a render before you start rendering your animation. You just have a look of how your final render is about to look like. Now that we are done with this, I think we can finally start rendering. Or, just because we have this, let me show you how to save this. Once you have the image, we are yet to finish the render. Okay, we're done with the render. So if you want to save the image, you can just save it at the given location. I'm going to save it as on IMG, and I'm going to save this as a PNG file. Okay, and that's how you save images if you want to save them. But now we'll create from 1 to 120. So we're going to create 120 frames. It's going to take quite some time, especially on my laptop with the 1050 Ti. So I'll see you after we have rendered all the images. Let me show you how you render that. So I'm going to hit on render animation, Control F12. And there you go. We start rendering the frames from frame 1 to frame 120. And you get to see how long it takes to render a single file. It's going to take quite some time with my GPU. Okay then, so I'll meet you after I'm done rendering all the frames and we'll merge them together to create the final animation. Alright everyone, it's been about 40 minutes, but I had to stop the render because we have an issue. Let me show you the frames that we have generated already. We are at 64th frame, so we have already generated 64 frames, but when I play these frames, you can see the problem. We have a problem with the emission. It seems fine the first wobble, but you can see it's already changing from red to a yellow tint. So it's basically going from red to green. I don't want that to happen. And on the second wobble, you can see it's already almost green now. And that's an issue. I don't want that to happen. But I think the first wobble was fine. Let's go back to say frame 35. Yeah, that will do. Yeah. Okay. So we are fine with the first wobble. So I've stopped the render, and just to keep it light on the system, I've shift from render viewport mode to solid mode, or you can shift to another like material preview just to keep it light on your GPU. All right. So we'll have to make the required changes. But now, since we are fine with the first 35 frames, I don't want to re-render them again. So I'll just make sure to change the starting frame from 1 to 36, and that will be the new frames. And because we are not changing the location, it will just replace the frames that were already generated. So yeah, that should be fine. And let's just enter rendered viewport mode, and here you can see the issue that since we only added a keyframe of the color on frame 5, and we just added another keyframe for color green. So what is happening is the colors changing from frame 5 to frame 80. It is going from red to green, like in a transient color change, and I don't want that to happen. I want the color to be standard for the first two wobbles. It was fine to the first wobble, and let's just find the frame where the second wobble ends. So yeah, I want the color to be red on frame 65. So let's do that. First, we'll select the light up button, and we'll go, and here you can see the color is already green, and this is not something that we want to happen. So I'll just add a new keyframe with color red, and let's check. That should have, yeah, that just fixed it. And then for the third wobble, it goes from red to green. Yeah, I think we pretty much fixed it. Red and then green and stop. All right. Okay, so we'll re-render these files. I mean, we'll render the files, I mean, just the frames that we want to change. And because we are not changing the location on the output menu, it's the same location. The new frames will just replace the 36th frame. New 36th frame will just replace the older ones, and we should be fine. I should have checked this before, but I wanted to look better and shoot an intro video by the time just the render finishes. But this is a problem that you'll probably come across, and you don't really have to panic. The fix is really easy. You'll just have to play around with the keyframes. And while we're at it, say you don't want this aspect ratio of the window, like the camera window, you want to post it on a social media site or something like a different aspect ratio, like the tall one, 16:9. Well, this is 16:9, but it's on a landscape mode. And say you want to turn it on portrait, you can either rotate the camera, but doesn't really act as a fix. So you can normally enter the output mode and change the pixel sizes here. Like you can change the resolution. You can also evidently change the aspect ratio. So you can just change the pixels on the y-axis to 1920, and you can change the pixels on x-axis to 1080, just to tilt it in 90 degrees, and you'll have the aspect ratio that is suitable for you to post on social media. So just another thing that I thought I missed, and I'll finish this render, and I'll probably meet you after the render is done. Alright guys, so we are finally done with the render. We have rendered all 120 frames, and let me check our folder. There you go, all 120, and red. So that's it. We are almost done with the rendering part, and we just need to club all the frames together to make the video. And we can do that on Blender. So let me create a new file for video editing, and yes, I will save this. This is a video editor offered by Blender. It is quite simple to use, and let's start by importing our frames into the video editor. For that, make sure that your mouse is on the timeline, and I'm going to hit Shift A and select image sequence. We go to the location, frames, and here I select the first photo and hit A to select all the frames, and we can add this image strip. And there you see all the frames have been imported into the video editor, and it seems fine. And also we only have 120 frames, so let's change the frame range here from 250 to 120, and you can again change the FPS, which is frames per second. We designed it for 30 frames per second, but you can again change it if you feel like 24 frames per second feels good. You can change the settings here as well. but we'll keep it 30. And again, if you're trying to make an animation to post on social media, you would have to change the resolution and the aspect ratio here as well. But in our case, we'll keep this same. I want it to be in landscape mode. So everything is pretty much fine. Let's just place, okay, 2 and 3. Okay, perfect. Now we can start rendering this animation, but let's just make sure to select an output location. Means I want it to save at the same location where I save my blend file. And let's just name this as say final render. And accept, there are some encoding that you can change. We want this to be saved as MP3, which is this one, FFmpeg, something that is an MP4. And also you can change the encoding to just affect the output quality. It doesn't really have great impact, but it is what it is. You can always try to make it better. And we don't really have any audio, so I think that should cover all of it. And we can start rendering. You can either click Control F12 to start rendering the animation, or you can just with this here. So all the frames would the image sequence would play once as the animation is being rendered. And once it's done, we will have our MP4 file available at the location. Almost done. And yep, let's go check the folder, and there you go, final render. Alright guys, so you can see the animation is available, and yeah, I'm happy with the way it looks. So that will be all for the video. Thanks for sticking around, and I really appreciate your view. And I do design some serious stuff. This was a simple design just to give you a brief introduction of the purpose of making these videos. Like, I want to design my stuff on a CAD software which gives me control so that I can share the files and modify them. And, it's easier for me to create files for 3D printing. But I still want to design cool stuff and make them look cool too. And that's just not possible when you're trying to render this natively or Fusion. So I think this combination really gives you the best of both worlds. And that is something that I want to put across. And I'll be making videos for all these designs that I've been working on. And if you want to check my work, please make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.